Welcome to Barbecue Today. I'm your host, Derek Riches, and today we're going to be doing one of my most popular recipes, chuck roast on a pellet grill. This is a smoked beef recipe, sometimes called a poor man's brisket. Chuck roasts are easy to find and tend to be inexpensive. We're going to put it on the pellet grill, smoke it up good, and have a great beef barbecue. So I have my chuck roast here. This is a pretty small one, about 2.5 pounds. It'll take about 45 minutes per pound at about 250 degrees to cook this. So we're looking at about 2-hour cook time on this. So it's nice and quick and easy. I'm not really gonna do anything with this. Yeah, there's some fat here and there, but we wanna keep all of that. One of the things about chuck roast is it doesn't have the kind of intermuscular fat that maybe a brisket does. So we wanna kind of keep as much fat as possible. As far as the connective tissues and the membranes that are in here, well, we're going to deal with those after it's cooked. So we're just going to do a pretty simple rub here. I've got 2 tablespoons of coarse salt. I've got a tablespoon of black pepper, a tablespoon of chili powder, a tablespoon of granulated garlic, and a tablespoon of granulated onion. So I'm just going to mix these together. And start putting this on my chuck roast. I want to get a nice even distribution and kind of let the meat decide how much it wants to hold on to. Now once I've got this rub on here, what I want to do is I'm going to take some plastic wrap here and wrap it up nice and tight, put it back in the refrigerator. When you put your rub on a roast like this, you do want to make sure you're getting around the edges and on both sides. So I will work this in nice and well, get it wrapped up, get it in the fridge, and then we'll get the pellet grill all set up and ready to cook. So as you can probably hear, my pellet grill is preheating. I'm going for a temperature of 250 degrees. My chuck roast has been, it's got a rub on it, it's been wrapped up, it's been put in the fridge for about an hour. That's allowing the salt to kind of combine with the natural juices of the meat, kind of start sinking in a little bit. This is going to give us that bark we're looking for, that nice crusty surface. So when we're done, we have that kind of combination of textures. Now, today I'm going to be cooking on the Oklahoma Joe's Ryder DLX pellet grill. Now this has direct sear capabilities. It's got this little louver here that opens up so we can get direct fire on food, and it can cook at high temperatures. One of the downsides of that is that if I cook kind of down here on this primary level, it's gonna cook it a little too fast, and it's gonna expose too much heat. So I'm gonna be cooking on this upper rack, and to make sure that I don't get my grill too dirty, I'm just gonna put a nice little drip pan in here. I'll put my chuck roast right on here, and we'll get cooking. Okay, so my pellet grill is all preheated. I got my chuck roast unwrapped. I'm just gonna take this and set this right up here on this upper rack. If you want for extra moisture, you can put water in your little drip pan here. That will kind of help keep some moisture up. I'm not going to go that far. Now I'm going to take my meat probe, plug it in here. Get this into a nice meaty portion of my chuck roast. Now I'm going to set my probe temperature here for my alarm. I'm going to set this to 165 degrees. Now that's not my final cooking temperature. That's the temperature I want to come out and check on it, because I'm gonna wrap the chuck roast, put in about half a cup of beef broth, and then let it finish off that way so it's nice and tender. Okay, we're all set to go. Should be about hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. Okay, now remember, my chuck roast is about 2.5 pounds. It's relatively small. If you're dealing with a 5-pound chuck roast, your cook times are going to be a lot longer. 5-pound chuck roast, total cook time is going to be 4.5 hours, somewhere in that range. If you go to a lower temperature, of course, it's going to take a lot longer. It's the thing about barbecue, we go by temperature, not by time, so adjust accordingly. So as you can hear, the alarm is going off on my pellet cooker here, telling me my chuck roast is 165 degrees. It's been on for about 1 hour and 40 minutes, so I was pretty close on the timing. I'm just gonna reset this alarm. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull out that chuck roast and I'm gonna wrap it. So we get this probe out of the way. See, my chuck roast is got a lot of great color to it. Set it on this foil. Now what I have here is 1/2 cup of beef broth. Now I've heated this to in the neighborhood of 165 degrees. I don't want it to cool down the meat, but I also don't want it to cook it. This is going to give me some extra moisture. So it meat's extra tender. Get that wrapped up nice and tight. Put it back on here. And put in the meat probe again. So now I'm going to set my probe temperature for 195 degrees. At about 195 degrees, it should be done. So that should take about another hour. We'll check back then. Okay, so my alarm is going off again. That means that I have an internal temperature on my chuck roast of 195 degrees. Go ahead and kill this. Take out the probe. Lift this off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure this is wrapped up good and tight. I might put a little extra layer of foil on it to cover up the hole there. And then I'm going to put a towel over it, keep it warm, let it sit for about 1 hour. That'll bring up the internal temperature a little bit more, but make sure it's really good and tender. So this is my chuck roast. I've let it sit for about 45 minutes. This has let the internal temperature come up a little bit more. It's let it relax. It's still hot to the touch, so I'm going to put on my food safe insulated gloves and I'm going to dig in here, see what we got. Now when you do a brisket, you're looking for something you can slice really well, but when you're doing a chuck roast, you're going to be looking for something that's going to be a little bit more tender than that. Now, so what I want to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to shred this. I'll pull off some of the fat, but you can just see it's real tender. It comes apart. Still got, you know, the integrity of it. It hasn't turned to mush, but real tender, really flavorful. You can shred all this up, make some great sandwiches, eat it just the way it is. You choose. If you want to do it with a sauce, I'll put a link down below to some great sauce recipes, as well as the specific recipe for this pellet grilled chuck roast. I think you'll find this is a cheap, quick, easy way to make some really great barbecue beef.